What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to bring you another one of my 2014 WCQ hat format deck profiles. The deck I want to show off today is Cyber Dragon Artifact. It's a really cool deck that has some really interesting synergies with one another, and I also recently had put out a live duel commentary video showing off this deck that you should definitely check out. But in general, I know a lot of people really enjoy Cyber Dragons as a whole, so I am extremely excited to show off this deck. I've been having a ton of fun with it, and I think you guys will too. So let's get straight into this deck profile. So usually I start off with the monsters, but for this deck profile, I want to start off with one of the traps, just because it'll help make sense and kind of show the bridge between the artifacts and the Cyber Dragons, and that card is 3 copies of Cyber Network. This is a continuous trap that has the effect that you destroy this card during your 3rd standby phase after activation, and then once per turn during either player's turn, if Cyber Dragon is on the field, you can banish 1 light machine monster from your deck, and then when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you special summon as many of your banished light machine monsters as possible, and if you do that, you destroy all spell and trap cards you control. The monsters summoned off of this effect cannot activate their effects, and you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. So just from this alone, what I can say is this deck is based on trying to banish as many of your Cyber Dragon monsters as possible, and then ideally destroying this card on your opponent's turn, being able to soul charge basically from your banish pile all your Cyber Dragon monsters, and then blowing up your back row, which would eventually, hopefully trigger all your artifact cards because it's on your opponent's turn. And, if you still had zones available, summon those artifacts and be able to do whatever those artifact effects are. So, for example, Madolche, pop a face-up card, artifact Scythe, lock your opponent out of extra deck. Just a lot of cool things. If you open this ideally as quick as possible, you can technically use this effect and banish up to 7 different light machine monsters, which isn't always the best to banish all that many because you'll see the rest of the monster count and stuff, but in general, very, very strong card, and it's just a really cool way to get a bunch of monsters on board and close out games quickly. But anyways, to start off with the monsters, we are obviously playing 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. Just if your opponent controls a monster, it's a free special summon. 2100 beater is pretty good as a level 5 light as well. 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Core. On normal summon, you can add a cyber spell or trap from deck to hand, so that can add you your Cyber Network. And then it has the effect that if your opponent controls a monster and this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it and summon a Cyber Dragon monster from your deck, and each effect is a hard once per turn per copy. So what I mean by that is if you use the effect to search, you can't use the banish to summon effect in the same turn. So it's a very hard once per turn, but a really good card overall. After that, we play 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Dry. This one has the effect that on normal summon, you can make all Cyber Dragon monsters you control become level 5. And if you do that, you can only special summon Cyber Dragons during the turn. Or I should say machine monsters during that turn, my apologies. And then it also has the effect that if it's banished, I can target a Cyber Dragon monster I control, and for that turn, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. The other thing to note is while this one's on the field or in the graveyard, it's treated as Cyber Dragon, and same thing with Core, while it's on the field or in the graveyard, it is treated as Cyber Dragon as well. Lastly, for the Cyber Dragon cards, we play 1 Cyber Eleton. It can't be normal summoned or set. It can be special summoned from your hand by banishing all of your light machine monsters from your field and graveyard. And then based on the number of banished cards from that effect, it will gain 500 attack for each, and that's why it has the mystery attack. It's based on however many are banished. And then its other effect is when it's special summoned, you send all other face-up monsters on the field to the graveyard. So really, really good card. It doesn't destroy, so it gets around cards that can't be destroyed or targeted and things like that. Really, really good card. Next, for the artifact engine, I play 3 copies of Madolche. Obviously, when summoned on the opponent's turn, you pop a card. 1 copy of Beagletech. When summoned on the opponent's turn, you're able to pop your back row, which is really cool with network. If the network is set, when you summon the Beagletech, you can pop the network and get the effect to summon back all of those. And then right now, I'm playing 1 Scythe. The reason we play Scythe right now is because I'll probably have to have a whole discussion video on this, but currently the main topping decks are like Geargia and such, and so Scythe is just a good way to lock down some of the Geargia type decks that need their Xyz summons to really extend and push through boards. Though it is a control deck, Scythe does come in really, really clutch in a lot of other matchups as well. So right now, this is the ratio. There has been times where I've considered dropping 1 Madolche just because you see it a little more than you would like. So you could even go down to like 2 Madolche, 1 Beagletech, and 1 Scythe. I've seen some people in this type of deck specifically play 2 Beagletech just because the popping effect. But in general, I think this is a really good ratio. The only change I would make is potentially dropping down 1 copy of Madolche. Next, for the spells, we play 3 copies of Pot of Duality. There's a lot of hands where you just summon core and then put out a bunch of back row. So Pot of Duality is completely fine. You don't necessarily need your special summons because, again, you're ideally going to pop network on your opponent's turn. 3 copies of Ignition. This is one of the ways you can pop network. Again, network is also a mandatory effect, so you have to trigger it so it won't miss timing. So you can use Ignition, pop the network, and get the effect off, as well as setting another one. So when you would then pop it, you summon all your things and blow up all your back row. So if it's on the opponent's turn, you will be able to trigger that artifact that you just set. And to go along with that, also 2 copies of Double Cyclone for all the artifacts, and again, network is just really, really important. 2 copies of Instant Fusion. There definitely are times where you're going to want to make a push, and Instant Fusion is just an extra body, which is really, really good. 1 copy of Cyber Repair Plant. The reason you only play 1 in this deck is because it requires you to have a Cyber Dragon in graveyard to activate it. And like I said, most of the time you're wanting to banish your stuff, and so having 1 as an option after you've already Xyz summoned and some of those Cyber Dragons might be in grave, this card is better. What it does is if a Cyber Dragon is in your graveyard, you activate 1 of these effects. If you have 3 or more Cyber Dragons in grave, you can activate both in sequence. The first effect is you add a light machine monster from deck to hand, and the second one is you target a light machine monster in your graveyard and shuffle that target into the deck. This is a way to search your Cyber Eleton or be able to put back resources. 1 Dark Hole to clear boards, and 1 Soul Charge simply because you do play artifacts. You may not play that card if you weren't playing such a heavy artifact package, just because, again, a lot of your times your stuff is getting banished. Moving on to the traps, obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, we play 3 copies of Network, just the best card. After that, 3 copies of Sanctum to summon your artifacts. It becomes so much better with Scythe too, being able to just get Scythe straight from the deck and use the effect. Because of all the artifacts, I've been playing 2 copies of Call the Haunted in this deck. Just a really solid card. Again, if you watch that duel video, this did come up and it was really solid. And then for a couple one-ofs, we play 1 Breakthrough Skill, 1 Compulse, 1 Torrential, and 1 Solemn Warning. For the extra deck, we play 2 copies of Chimeratech Fortress Dragon. This requires a Cyber Dragon and 1 or more machine monsters. It's a contact fuse card, so basically you would summon a Cyber Dragon, and then you just get rid of the materials that you need and summon this out. and its effect is its original attack becomes 1,000 times the number of material used to summon it. So Cyber Dragon +1 is going to make this 2,000. The reason we play 2 of this is because since it's a contact fuse, what ends up happening is you can use your opponent's monsters. So this deck can side things like DNA surgery to switch typing. So for example, if you had that, you could turn all your opponent's monsters into machines, summon Cyber Dragon, contact fuse their whole board away, which is really good. The other thing is, since we're already, playing Cyber Dragon and stuff, going against those decks like Geargia that I mentioned before, this card can just kind of clear their whole board, which is really nice. I think at any other point you could probably just side one, but having one in case you're playing against a machine deck and then having the other as an actual thing to go into is really important. 1 copy of Cyber Twin Dragon. This is your target for Cyber Dragon Nova that we'll talk about in a little bit. Pretty much it's a 28 beater that can attack twice, so really cool. And for the instant fusion target, I chose to play Cybersaurus. Some people will play Ojama Knight because Ojama Knight is a light monster, so you can go into Pleiades with this and an artifact, or with a Cyber Dragon and an artifact, or Cyber Dragon plus your instant fusion target. But in general, the reason I go for Cybersaurus is because Cyber Dragon dry locks you into machine monsters. So having a machine target, I think, is more important, as well as Cyber Dragon Nova helps you play into more back row because it has an effect when it would be destroyed by card effects. We'll talk about that in just a second here, but that's why I chose that over the Ojama Knight. 1 Gaia Dragon just to put on top of my 5s, and it also does piercing damage. 1 copy of Wind Up Arsenal Zenmayo to pop 2 set cards. I wasn't playing this originally, but again, similar to playing the Cybersaurus, this is a machine, so I can technically go through it and chew through some back row in case I open like Instant Fusion plus Dry. So really, really good card. 1 Tyrus. Can't be destroyed by card effects while it has material and pops cards, so just really safe. 2 copies of Pleiades to recycle resources and interrupt your opponent. 1 Volcasaurus to do some burn damage. 1 Durandal, being able to replace normal spell and traps and monster effects is actually really relevant because it forces your opponent to pop one of your back row, which can trigger your network, it can pop your artifacts, just a really good card in general. 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Nova. This card is actually just insane. It needs 2 machine-type monsters. Once per turn, you can detach a material and target a Cyber Dragon in your grave and special summon it. And then also it has the effect that once per turn during either player's turn, you can banish a Cyber Dragon from your hand or face-up field, and then make this card gain 2100 attack. So it can make it really, really beefy, get over a lot of things, and then if it's destroyed in your possession by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon a machine-type fusion monster from your extra deck. So again, you would summon out that copy of Cyber Twin Dragon. Some people will also play like Barbaroid or something, which is like a 4000 beater that can attack monsters twice and do a little burn damage. But for the decks that comes up against, it's not super, super relevant, but it is an option. The other thing is possession is a very key word there. So even if your opponent Solemn Warnings this, you will get the summon effect, which is kind of crazy. Again, this just helps you play into heavy back row boards. So like if they torrential you, you just go plus on it. Really good. And then I do play 2 level 4s because technically you can make them. 1 Honor Arc and 1 Dweller to round out the list. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this deck profile. If you guys have any questions, definitely comment those in the comment section, or if there's other deck profiles or videos in general you'd like to see, let me know in the comment section. Always drop a like on the video, comment, subscribe, share the video with your friends, and anyways, I will see you in the next video.